Today on the podcast, we have special guest Savannah Campbell, and she is such a gem. And she's going to be sharing her experience on TPT, successes, failures, things that have gone really well for her, and game changers for her business. One of the things that Savannah is going to share is that it took her 6 years to reach the first TPT milestone, and then only a few months after that to hit the second TPT milestone. And she's going to be talking about what happened in that time frame to go from earning just a few $100s a month to almost overnight seeing 5-figure months. And I cannot wait for you guys to meet her. Here's Savannah. Hey, Savannah, how are you?
I'm good, Lauren. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to chat with you today. So tell everyone just a little bit about you, who you are, and kind of your TPT journey so far.
So I am Savannah Campbell. I am a K-5 reading specialist. I'm still in the classroom. I just started my 13th year teaching, and every single one of my years has been at the school that I went to as a child. So I feel very called to work in the community that I work in. So I'm in 100% free now, breakfast and lunch. So, we have a lot of students who are going through a lot, and I just really feel like I'm called to get to have the opportunity to give back to this community that helped make me. I'm also a mom of a 4-year-old child. She's currently being maintained with my husband out there right now. But yeah, so TPT, I actually got started in 2016. And I remember the first time I sold something, and the resource was actually really awful, and I don't even have it anymore. And I was just like so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, people are going to pay me for these things I'm already making. And then I was just really terrible at it for a few years. But in 2019, I was Orton Gillingham trained. I know you do middle school math, right?
Yeah.
So Orton Gillingham is an explicit phonics approach to teaching children how to read. And nobody had ever taught me that. So all of a sudden, I needed things to teach my kids, and nobody had it the way that I thought of it. So the way that it made sense to me. And so I just started making things that I needed based off of that. And that's really where I exploded. I think I told you in a voice message before, it took me 6 years to reach the first TPT milestone. Once I reached that first one, it took me 7 months to get to the next one. So that has been kind of my journey, and I'm very excited about it. Like most people, I'm going through a little bit of a slump right now, but like a lot of us will fail, but it doesn't have to be us, right? Like we can be the ones who keep at it and keep making a difference, and we only lose if we quit. So I'm just keeping on, keeping on.
I love that. I think that's so inspiring to hear. It takes so long sometimes to reach that first milestone that a lot of sellers get burnt out and tired, and rightfully so, because if anybody were to tell me, oh yeah, I'm working 10, 20, maybe even 40 hours a week at this job, and I'm only making, 20,000 divided by 6 is a year, I would tell them, you need to quit your job. Like, that's horrible, right? Like, you shouldn't be doing that. But at the same time, sometimes as an entrepreneur, it kind of takes that long to get to where you need to be. And so I love that that was like a real quick transition for you. Like, okay, here we are. I've reached that first milestone. And then now just a few months later, I've hit milestone number 2, which is really incredible. So it's so exciting and inspirational. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened between making a few $100s a month, I'm assuming, to what sounds like you're having 5-figure months, like overnight? What happened?
So what's really funny too is the month that I reached the first milestone was the same month that I had my first 5-figure month. So I mean, it just exploded. And so honestly, what I think happened, and I've said this before, is I found my niche. I know that there are a lot of people out there that sell a little bit of everything, and they're very successful. But I think if you look at the people who do that, they've been doing it for a long time. I truly believe that there's space for all of us in this community, but there's not space for all of us to be everything in this community. So I began learning about the science of reading. And I realized, like, wait a second, like, these are the things that I need. And so I started making them in a way that made sense for me. And that's truly just where it came from. Also, during the pandemic, I got on Instagram, and I was such an old woman on Instagram. I was like, what? So, like, I can't put pictures and comments, and I can't link. Like, I was just so overwhelmed. I didn't use stories for probably a year now, maybe like 6 months. Like, it all scared me. But then, just like I said before, like, I just kept at it. I just didn't give up. So between figuring out what my niche was, so I create phonics and phonemic awareness resources aligned to the science of reading. And I think everyone should be able to say what they do in one sentence. If you can't tell me what you do in one sentence, maybe two, you're probably doing too much. And so just sticking with what I know and what I'm very passionate about has been the game changer for me. Because if you're not passionate about it too, it shows. You know, just like if you're not passionate about teaching, kids know. If you're not passionate about the resources you're creating, teachers are going to know too.
So having resources, creating resources that you're passionate about, but also really honing in on that niche. And I kind of want to talk about this for just a second with you, because I think we hear that so often. I know when I was coming up in the TPT world, it was find your niche, find your niche, find your niche. And for really good reason, because there's a lot of truth to that. But I think also some people go so niche. Like when we're
Yeah.
talking about your niche, we're talking about like, how many people use science of reading, right? A tremendous number of teachers are using
Correct.
science of reading. However, it is extremely specific, and it allows you to be specialized, reach those people faster, provide more resources for them. It allows you to do so much, and it allows you to really bloom in an area and for you to do more in your business and make more progress in your business faster than trying to specialize in everything. But at the same time, there actually has to be a legitimate need for that niche that you're specializing in. Sometimes people will specialize in something that they're extremely passionate about. I'm like, you go, girl, but nobody else is buying this. So at what point did you say, this is where I'm going to focus my energy and my efforts because it's clear that it's working? And how did you know that it was working?
Oh, that's a great question. I had started using a lot of this with my own students. And once I started to see the difference in my own kids, because before I started being niche specific like this, I kind of made a little bit of everything. But then once I started learning about the science of reading, I was realizing that I was doing everything I had ever been taught. You know, I have 2 master's degrees in education, and neither one of them taught me how to teach children how to read. And so I was doing everything that I was taught, and my kids were still failing. Like, and it was embarrassing to me because like I'm this person, I'm a reading specialist, I'm supposed to be an expert, and yet none of my kids were leaving intervention. And then all of a sudden I start doing these other things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm able to call parents and be like, hey, I love your child, but they got to go, you know? And so for me, it's really exciting when I see that it works. And I wanted to go back to what you said about being too niche specific. I completely agree. And I think too that we need to keep in mind that niches aren't grade levels. You know, like you don't just have to be the first grade math teacher. You could have a niche that is like, I do all things social studies. I do all things digital resources. So don't think that you have to be like a K person or a grade level specific person. It's really just about where is your area of expertise. And I think about it like this too. Like if I tried to go teach middle school math, I would fall on my butt because I'm not good at it. But I'm really good now at teaching reading. And so that's where we want to spend our energies at. Like if we're really good at teaching something, that is what we should be teaching others. I was listening to another podcast and she said, we teach the things we had to learn. That was Jasmine Star.
I
And
love
it's
that.
so true. I had to learn about the science of reading, and now I'm passionate about teaching others it because it was the thing that I had to take on myself.
And I think one of the things about that that's standing out to me about what you're saying is if you have seen success with those resources inside of your classroom and you've seen such a dramatic change in your students, putting those resources out into the market, you know that whatever teacher finds those resources, they're going to keep coming back for more because they're going to experience the same type of success that you have, which is extremely important. I think
Yeah.
sometimes a lot of people will have a niche, and a lot of people are probably like, Lauren is so anti-template. But I do think sometimes people will have a niche and they'll be like, I am specialized. I'm middle school math. I create engaging middle school math resources, right? But by taking a template, a pre-made template from somebody else and just like plugging in problems, that doesn't really give you a specialization. It really doesn't give you any
Nope.
kind of competitive edge. You have to go beyond some of that basic just niching yourself
Mm-hmm.
and labeling yourself as a specific type of teacher. So when we're talking about science of reading, because it's now really popular, like I've heard people talking about creating science of reading resources in all the Facebook groups. Like I've seen this, like I'm very familiar with those terms. Have you seen a difference since it's become more popular, do you think that that's impacted your sales
Mhm.
as more people are creating those type of resources? Or do you think that that popularity is increasing the traffic because more teachers know that they exist?
I think honestly, maybe a little bit of both. I'm also not a person who is overly jealous. Like, I don't look at what other people are doing. So, probably my most popular product is word chains. And it's something I had done several years ago. I did not invent word chains, but I was one of like the first people. So, it has hundreds of reviews and stuff like that. But then other people are posting word chains. And I'm like, you go, because maybe the way that you approach this is different from the way that I approach it. And maybe that's what somebody else needs. But I know what my audience needs. And so I'm okay with sharing that space with other people. It does not bother me at all. Like, there's a difference between like being inspired by and straight up copying. And it just doesn't bother me. I do think that those terms have become more popular. And in a way, because they've become more popular, they've become somewhat meaningless in a way. Like, I don't really even put science of reading in my titles anymore because some people just put it on there to have the buzzword. So instead, I try to be very specific about what it actually includes because that's what they're searching for. People aren't actually searching for science of reading. They're searching for phonics resources. They're searching for word chains. They're searching for fluency grades. Those are the things that they're searching for. And if we just put science of reading on it, then it's kind of just like, okay, another person trying to jump on the bandwagon. And I think we have this obligation to only put forth what we know a lot about, right? If you don't know a lot about something, we are not positioned to make resources for it. Choose something that you are really good at. And I had talked to you before about this, that there are people who do not like TPT and they do not think that TPT is legitimate. And I think the bottom line for that is they don't trust teachers. But the only way that we are going to turn the tide for that is if we continue to put forth really quality resources that are aligned with what we know about how children learn. So if you're not well versed in science of reading, that is okay. But leave those resources to somebody else. Because guess what? I'm coming to you when my daughter's in middle school math. I'm not even going to try. Like, there is space for all of us, but in the things that we know.
Absolutely. And same for me. Like just the other day I purchased a curriculum from Lauren Brainard from I can't remember her store name off the top of my head. I'll have to put it in the show notes. She creates toddler curriculum. Like, do I
Mm-hmm.
know anything about what toddlers are supposed to learn? No clue. Not a clue. I'm like, my 3-year-old can count to 5. Does that mean she's a genius or is she behind? No idea. Do you know what I mean? So it's like those are the kind of resources that I'm like, I'm not touching toddler curriculum. I'm not just going to create
Mm-hmm.
it because, oh, I create resources. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this for my kid and when I have no clue what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? And that's where I feel like we start to waste a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
and we start to
Mm-hmm.
waste a lot of energy. And that's where expectations are really going to be unmet. I've known people who've created resources for, their like a specific, like Martin Luther King Day or something like that,
Right.
that's outside of their wheelhouse, but they've created it specifically because they know it'll sell. And then after that, they're like, oh, well, now I can see that this is really popular. So I should create more of these types of resources. And it may help you get a few sales during that certain time of the
Mm-hmm.
year, but it doesn't really help you build any kind of credibility, build any kind of niche, because you're not ever going to be seen as the expert in that because you really aren't.
So, say if you have math resources and reading resources, all these different things, you're not likely to have as many repeat buyers. Sometimes I'll get notifications from TPT and one person just bought 12 things.
Yeah.
And it happens pretty regularly. And that's because they're like, oh, well, I like this. I'll probably like this too, you know? And so I think there's a difference between making things for what we need in our classroom, which might be a little bit everything, and making things for what our customer needs, because we are not our ideal customer and we need to figure out who that is.
Which goes back to something that you were saying earlier when you were talking about you don't have to be just that first grade math teacher, which is absolutely true. Like I'm math 5 all the way through 11th grade. Now, I don't specialize in all of that, but I hire specifically teachers who teach those grade levels to write some of that stuff that I've never taught before because I'm not the expert in that. But when we're talking about like starting out, sometimes it is really helpful to start with, I'm just going to focus on first grade math. I'm going to create plenty of resources so that there's options. And I'm not like splitting my time between K1 and
Mhm.
2, so that instead of having 3 resources for each grade, I have 10 resources for one grade, and there's more there for them to purchase when they come to my store.
Yes.
So
Yes.
starting out, sometimes that could be a really good strategy, but it doesn't have to be your long term, like I'm locked into like first grade math. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too, is it can change.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about this life is that we get to recreate ourselves as many times as we want until we figure out, like, wait a second, this is me, right? I always say, don't go past page 5 on my TPT store. It's a mess. We're getting there.
I love that. So let's talk about some struggles. Like, what has been probably the biggest struggle or hurdle in your TPT business?
Probably time. So
Yeah.
I think, I often get people and they're like, I don't know how you do it all. And here's the truth. None of us are doing it all, so I'm way past the point where I should have started hiring some stuff out, but it's just been such an anxiety inducing thing. So instead, I listen to a lot of podcasts about hiring things out and then I don't do it. But the honest thing is, it's time. I am a mom, I teach full time, and I do TPT. And so I'm waking up at 4:30 in the morning to try to get some work done before I go to work. I'm doing work after my daughter goes to bed. And so I think I want everyone to know that when you see people that look like they have it all, every time, if they have something in place really, really well, there's a good chance they've had to say no to something else.
Mhm.
Like I might be doing well with TPT, but I don't have a social life right now. I
Yeah.
do puzzles on Friday nights, and that is like key living for me right now. So I just think that no one is doing it all, and I'm trying to give myself grace with that. But especially now that school's back in session, it's really hard to get it all done.
It is. It's really hard. And I want to say, you got to hire somebody. Like, you've got to do that. The
I
next time you're in
know, I
college, you've got to have
know.
already done that, because I'm telling you, it is such a game changer for those monotonous tasks that you really hate doing. And even just starting with those monotonous tasks, or, I mean, ultimately, like hiring somebody else to do writing for you, because it's one of those things where you think, oh, this is going to take so much time to put like all these procedures into place. Like, it's going to take so much to do all of this. And it's really not nearly as bad as I think people anticipate that it's going to be. So if anyone listening is
Don't
like
do what I'm
my
doing.
hair, it's like, I'm putting it off. There's that part of me, there's that mom part of me that's like, I can't imagine waking up at 4:30, then going into mom mode, and then I've never had to go mom mode then teacher mode. I've never had to do that, and then after the kids go to bed, like then going right back into working. It's fun in some ways because you really enjoy the work and like you don't want to give it
I
up.
do. I
Yeah.
love the work.
But then on the other hand, it's like, I would really like to just sit down and watch a movie tonight on a Thursday night.
Mhm.
Or I'd really like to go to sleep, or I'd really like to
I
wake up in the morning and
know.
read a book and drink my coffee instead of doing this.
Right, that's my new goal. I know. Well, I have hired out a couple of things before and I wasn't happy. And I think that kind of burned me a little bit. Like
Yeah,
I hired somebody to do something hourly and it took them so long. And so I'm like, oh, I'm just going to do it. I'm faster at it.
totally get it. What's something that's been the biggest game changer for your business? So I know you mentioned earlier moving from making a few $100s a month to having 5-figure months, that niching down. Would you say that's been the biggest game changer, or has there been something else for you?
Well, so when you said that, the first thing that popped into my mind was actually like a product that I use that I love. I'm obsessed with ManyChat.
Oh,
ManyChat, I feel like has given me my life back. Do you know about it?
yeah, I do. It's the
Yeah,
Instagram.
so for people that don't know, ManyChat, it can do a lot of things, but what I have it do is like if somebody comments on my post a specific word, it'll send them a DM. So I used to literally spend hours a day personally responding, sending links and things like that. But now this has freed up my time. So I have posts where it sends 1,500 messages for me, sharing my links to people. And so, I mean, that has just saved me because now I can take that time I was doing just DMing posts that I can actually engage with people. And I really have to say, and I know that a lot of people don't want to hear it, but blogging and social media. I know both of those things. I know people think blogging's dead and social media is dead sometimes. Well, Instagram, but it's changed things for me, and now when somebody asks me a question about something, I'm like, oh, I wrote a blog post about that. Here you go. Or it's just claiming your own little bit of internet real estate is really important, I think. Finding space that is yours somewhere has been a game changer for me.
Absolutely. I love that. So what does your work routine look like? You said before, and maybe this has already been covered because you said before you're getting up at 4:30 and then you're working after the kids go to bed. Is that every day? What does day to day look like for you?
No, so, well, I will say during the summer, I still send my daughter to daycare. So during the summer, I wake up, I send her to daycare, and I treat that like a work day. But during the school year, so I'll wake up between 4:30 and sometimes closer to 5 if I'm just not feeling it. And I try to get maybe an hour of work in before I have to get her. That is pretty regular, but that's because I'm a morning person. I love mornings so much. I do a no work Wednesday, which is so stupid because I still go to work all day. And when I say I have a no work Wednesday, it just means I'm not doing anything after my daughter goes to bed. But I have to say this, like when there's weeks where I'm not feeling it, I don't do anything. Like the first 2 weeks I was back at school, I did literally nothing. I had all my social media already planned out because I knew that I was going to be overwhelmed and tired. So I do pretty regularly wake up, and then my daughter used to nap 3 hours a day until she turned 4, and then she decided she was a big girl. So now I don't have nap times, but I'm very grateful to have a husband who will take her and just like, I'm going to take her to the parents so you can get a little bit of work done, things like that. So I don't have a perfect schedule. I have a very real mom teacher schedule, but I only work probably 10 to 15 hours a week, and I make more on TPT than I make teaching. So it's
Yeah.
a pretty sweet gig, and I will take it. And I also just love doing it. Like I love creating resources, and I love talking to teachers and parents. So it doesn't feel like a burden. And if it did, I'd probably stop.
I love it. So if you could only do three things for your business, like take
Mhm.
everything out, there are only three things that you can do. Like you can only do email marketing, or you could only do Instagram,
Mhm.
or you can only do product creation. What three things would you
Mhm.
choose? And what would you cut out?
Product creation for sure.
Okay.
Blogging. And I want to say email marketing because it has the biggest return on investment, but it's not as much fun. So I would keep it just because I need it, but I would like to have social media instead. I'd probably cut out one of the social medias. Like I've completely stopped Pinterest. I don't care about Pinterest. I'm done with it. It's done with me. We broke up. So yeah, I would do product creation, blogging, and my email. I also waited way too long to start an email list. So like when I first started my email list, I got like 1,000 subscribers in a week. And everybody's like, that's amazing. I'm like, no, it's because I waited too long. Like if
Yeah.
you get that many in a week, that means you should have done it a year ago, folks.
That's awesome though that you were able to do that and that it was fast because I would imagine
Mhm.
that if you finally start it, after having a lot of success on social media and other platforms, then you finally start your email marketing and it's like six people, you're probably like, yeah, screw this. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. So yeah, 1,000 people is really good.
If I had to give like one bit of advice to people, you have to be okay with failing.
Mm,
Like there is no you are successful without failing. So if you see an Instagram post that has 20,000 likes, I can guarantee you that same person has an Instagram post that's 1,000. You just keep doing it until you don't fail anymore. And it really is being comfortable with no likes. It's being comfortable with no sales because that's the precursor. Every single person you've seen has had to fail before they found some even modicum of success.
absolutely. It's very true. And I'll also say I'm all about diversifying income streams and not putting all of your eggs in one basket kind of thing. And so I've found that once I've failed at multiple things in one business, the next time that I go to do the next business, I'm not going to say that it immediately takes off and everything's wonderful and daisies and roses, but there's a lot fewer hiccups. Like it goes a
Mm-hmm.
lot
Mm-hmm.
smoother the next go round. And so having all of those failures is really, really good because it can help you grow in other areas of your business.
Scary for teachers though, because we're used to teaching where we have this set income no matter what. And then some of us have just stumbled into being an entrepreneur. And so failure for a business could be failure for your family. So I recognize and I acknowledge how incredibly scary it is. And we weren't taught this. We
Yeah.
didn't go to business school, we went to teacher school.
Yeah.
So it's all guessing for a little bit.
It is. It really is. It's all guesswork for a little bit. And there are some things you can do, obviously, to help mitigate some of that guesswork. But at the end of the day, you can pay for all of the courses, you can be in all of the memberships, you can hire all the coaches you want to. And it's not going to, it's still not going to give you the same learning experience or the same teaching experience as failure will. Let's do some fun questions to end out this
Okay.
podcast. What are your favorite podcasts to binge?
I do have to say though that yours yours was. And for those of you listening, I actually reached out to Lauren and like fangirled and was like, if you ever have a chance, I would love to be on your show. So
Which I love.
truly, I have binged all of your stuff. I even got back to like an Instagram one you did with Ashley Mickelson, and it was so funny because like it was so like far beyond what we even do now. So I love yours, but I also love, I used to love true crime until I had my daughter and now I can't do it. So I like unexplained mysteries from Parcast. That one's really good. But then like also I love Amy Porterfield and Jenna Kutcher, but sometimes they're just too far beyond me.
Yeah, sometimes it's a lot to listen to entrepreneurial podcasts because you feel like I should be doing that and I should be doing that. And
No.
like I feel so far behind. Yeah, I totally hear you on that. Favorite way to relax?
Puzzle.
Okay, I love
I
that.
love it because it's not a screen. And when you're in front of a screen for so long, I have like this fancy puzzle board too. It's ridiculous. My puzzle game is strong, Lauren.
Now, are you like, because I can do a puzzle, like I really enjoy a puzzle, but I've got to be listening to something or watching something at the same time.
I'll listen to audiobooks or I'll put
Okay.
something on in the background that I don't pay attention to. I also am really, I'm such an old woman. I love to do puzzles and watch Antiques Roadshow.
Oh my gosh, I fall asleep to Antiques Roadshow almost every night.
I
Like I've
love
got
it
the
so
PBS
much.
subscription just
Me
for
too.
Antiques Roadshow.
We do too. And I'm
Oh,
like, come on, season 28. I just love it. I love the history and just seeing people who have had these things and it's worth so much money. It's just so cool to me.
it's so cool. It's so cool. And I'm not even like a history person. I'm just, it's like, it's just fascinating to me. I love it.
Yes.
Favorite show to binge watch currently?
So Antiques Roadshow, I would say, except for I've watched them so many times, is not as much fun. So I've been watching Unearthed on Max now. It's just like a history. They look at archaeology. I like stuff I don't have to pay attention to, and I can't handle sad right now at this point in my life. So it's pretty safe that it's not going to make me cry.
Yeah, love that. You're handed a gift card to your favorite restaurant. Where are you going and what are you ordering?
So my favorite restaurant is actually Cheesecake Factory, Louisiana chicken pasta, vanilla bean cheesecake. There is no other choice.
I love that. Okay, perfect. What's next for you in your business, Savannah?
I would love, so this is just a dream of mine, and I'm gonna actually have to hire people out for this, Lauren. But I see a lot of curriculums that are like K through 2 phonics and 3 through 5 morphology. And I would love to create an entire curriculum that is K through 5 word study that builds on it because there's not really a lot out there that has both. And I've become really passionate about both. So that's my dream.
And where can listeners find you to connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm at Campbell Creates Readers. I have an Instagram, I have a Facebook, I have a blog. If you're coming to me for TPT advice, I'm probably not your best person. I will help you as much as I can, but that's not what my content's about. My content really is about helping teachers to understand the science of reading in a way that doesn't make you feel ridiculous because some people like to talk down to you and that is not me. I am very much like your person that I just want to help people. That's all I want. I just want to help teachers so that they can help kids.
I love it. Well, we'll link to all of those down inside of the show notes so that everyone can find you. And thanks so much for being here, Savannah. I really appreciate you reaching out and asking because it was actually exactly what I was looking for. I love having guests on the podcast, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thanks so much for being here, you guys. If you want to learn more about Savannah and connect with her, you can find links to do that down inside of the chat. You'll also find a link to get on the RTA wait list. So I'm going to tell you guys, let you in on a little bit of a secret. At the end of the year, I'm going to be doing a top secret backdoor opening into RTA, and it's going to be the only one that I'm going to have for quite a while. Since I've got a baby on the way coming in January, I'm probably not going to be doing any kind of big openings for RTA for a while. So if you've had RTA on your radar, this is going to be your one and only opportunity for a long time. So make sure that you are on that wait list so that you don't miss it. You can go to the rebrandedteacher.com and you can sign up and get on that wait list so that you don't miss that opening. Thanks so much for being here, you guys, and I will see you right here next week.